might vary, or you might like, oh, that's not right. So you were raised by the law, but you might not agree with the law, so you can act on your own, like running the red light. People do it all the time, but it's not right. So you have to, it's you as a person make up the decision.
Okay, hang on. Go ahead.
I think ethics is a framework for society, like the rules and stuff, but I think morality deals more with like a person, what they think might be right. So like a person can some people like literally justify murdering somebody. Like that's right to them. So, but that doesn't put them like above the law, like they still need to be punished for that. But then at the same time, like if somebody knocks on your door and says, is there anybody in your basement, you're gonna say no. Like, so I think ethics is more the framework, but morality is what kind of drives you to make the decision what's right here within you. But it might not be right.
It's kind of muddy. Go ahead.
I want to defend his point. He was saying that the morality is above the law, kind of, but if morally the decision that you're making is allowing more freedom for more people than the law, which is in theory supposed to allow the most freedom for the most people, then really wouldn't you choose your morality over the ethics?
I can agree with that argument. I don't know if it's airtight, but I can agree with that argument, absolutely.
So ethics would be like, ethics and law, ethics like the law of the land. It's like beyond the control of one. Since there has to be like, you said, like two in agreement. So morality is just one person, one thought of like how they pursue, like.
Well, I'm not going to agree to it. I'm just going to hear what you're saying and see, how we're going to flush that into everything else we've talked about. Anybody else? This is really good. I appreciate it. This is as good as the first class on Monday. The second class, I needed you all to, change seats with them. They were a little. Go ahead. Finally, go.
Well, I think this is why ethics is such a long-standing philosophical debate, is because you can't just define ethics, and you can't just define what morality is. I think ethics, one of the best examples is what you give. This is the value behind the law, as far as we as a culture and as a society and as humanity have gotten together and said, no, we say you cannot murder because there has to be a value of life. However, there are people, like some of you have said, who their morality is much more miscontorted than ours is, and they say, well, no, I have to murder this person, and they can create an idea in their mind as to why, and they can justify it. So we can't really put morality above ethics, because some people's morality is not what common morality is. Most of us have the idea that, no, we can't go around lying, cheating, stealing, murdering. But not everybody has that code of morality. And so as a society, we've got the code of ethics, and we've said, no, we can't do these things. And we back them up because we have to have a civil society. We have to have what's best. And in there, we've taken different people's ideas of morality, and we've kind of tried to put what's most common into the ethics, but it's also constantly changing, and that's why we have Roe v. Wade, and that's why we have the ongoing debates of, can you have tattoos in the workplace? And because people's idea of ethics is constantly changing, but the big ones, of murder, stealing, raping, we tend to commonly agree on that.
Everybody agree with that? So here's a counter argument. This is a Socratic method. You present an argument, it's a good argument, but let's think about it this way and let's think about it that way. So you're right, the law says no lying, stealing, cheating, raping, robbing. And yet the law endorses the state that enforces the law taking people's lives, capital punishment. We'll learn about that when we get there. The law also says you can't take someone else's property without compensation. And yet the state is allowed to take your property from you. It's called eminent domain, and they have overridden that periodically because there are greater economic benefits for the greatest happiness for the greatest number. So we take people's land from them. We compensate them, but that's my land. How can you take that? How can you put, this goes back to the utilitarian, how can you put a calculus on the value of my land? Well, they go to a retailer, they go to a realtor or something. Well, that's not how you calculate the value of my land. My kids were born there, my great-grandkids were born there. How can you, but we do that anyway. So the state has prohibitions on one hand, keep us in the box, and then the state will step outside the box and justify that for the greater good. Capital punishment, appropriating property, taxation, more of you than the billionaire, because the billionaires have their hand on the mechanism of the law and they tilt the mechanism to give them the greater benefit. You realize if you make money without working for it, you pay less taxes. If you invest your money, you pay something called a capital gains tax, and it has certain limitations no matter how much money you make. But if you sweat, you will probably, in all likelihood, if you make enough money by the sweat of your labor, pay a greater percentage than someone like me who maybe invests their money in the market and I'm not working for it. So that's the conflict or the contrast. What you said was good. What everybody said has been good. That's the contrast with, we have the laws established, that's the ethical framework, we don't all agree, but we have to abide by it, and when we don't, there are penalties, and then the state gets to step outside the agreement when they want to.
Oh, I see. So you're asking why can the state violate ethics and we can't? Or?
Well, it's a contradiction. We're all supposed to stay within the box, including the people who make the laws. You know, the people who make the laws, at least in Washington, don't have to abide by the laws. You know, they wrote a law that says they don't have to abide by the laws. It's like, really? Wow. I just want to flush it out. That was good thinking, good thoughts. Go ahead.
I don't know how to put this, but you just said like people that make the laws or whatever, they don't have to abide by it. And they
The
might
select
have-
few.
Yeah. They might have, like you said, like taking someone's land, but they might not agree with it, but once money and stuff is involved, then morals change. Maybe not what they think is morally right, but they're still going to do because they get paid, and then they just
Yeah, kind of like money's at the root of all
and
evil.
they're breaking the law. Well,
Sure, sure. There was a case of a congressman, I'm not going to mention his name, and they wanted to build a road, not to nowhere, but a road that wasn't necessary, and they went right through a centennial farm. You know what a centennial farm is? Centennial is a word for 100, is over 100 years old. And he bought land, and this road had to go right through it. And he was not on the farm, he was next to the farm, but the road was going to go right through it. And to get to the other side, had to go through the centennial farm, which is protected. And the legislature decided to go through the farm, and he made beaucoup money. Yeah, any of you know French, beaucoup? Very much. And he just bought that property because he happened to have what's called insider information. He knew the road was going to go there. And yet we have the law, and the law's there for a reason. It's there to protect all of us from all intrusions from the outside. So this is a true story. It's about 30 years ago. It's a California judge, Monday morning, goes to court, puts on his robe, walks into the courtroom. Oyez, oyez, everyone stand. They stand up. The judge sits down, gavels the court to order. Everybody sits down. He looks at the bailiff. He says, what's the first case of the day? He has a young girl stand up, 17 years of age, says, stealing from an outside grocery store, under $100. Judge looks at her. He says, how do you plead? And she says, guilty as charged. He said, what? When's the last time anybody pleaded guilty in court? Anybody remember someone named Timothy McVeigh? He blew up the Murr building in Oklahoma, government building. Unfortunately, there was a daycare center on the ground floor, and when the building collapsed, it killed a bunch of children. He's the last one I ever heard go to court stand up. Guilty as charged. They gave him a trial. They owed him a trial. He was a U.S. citizen. Found him guilty, sentenced him to death. He said, you can forget about all the appeals. Just go ahead and put the needle in. He was after justice. He knew what he did was wrong, and he was willing to accept the penalty because he had another agenda. He wanted to bring attention to the government and what he thought the government was doing wrong. So this young girl stands up, and the judge says, how do you plead? She says, guilty as charged. He says, what? She says, I'm not a thief. I got thrown out of my house this weekend and no extra clothes, no money. I got hungry, and guy went by this grocery, a couple apples and a banana. I know what I did was wrong. I was raised with morals. I'm guilty as charged. He says, darling, you're not helping me. I'll tell you what, you're my first case this morning. He says, either pay the court costs, $100 fine, and repay the grocer, or I'm going to have to give you 30 days in jail. She looked at him, she says, well, I'll take the 30 days in jail. He said, what? She said, I'm not a thief. I told you I got thrown out of my house this weekend on the beach, no clothes, no extra money. He says, if I could have paid him, I would have paid him. I'm not a thief. I didn't do it because I just wanted to steal. I had no other choice. So if my other choice is go to jail for 30 days, then I'll take the 30 days in jail. Just as have it your way. And he sentences her to 30 days in jail. Now the question is, did the judge do what was right? And before you answer that, remember red light, green light when you leave campus. What are judges for? The law provides the boundaries of maximal freedom and protection from those who follow the law. She broke the law. Well, but it was just one person. It was a couple of bananas and an apple. Yeah, I know, it's maybe $3 or $4. Well, there's 30 of us here. What if we all did it? Just $120. That man paid for that food, put a price on it so that he could collect a living so he could raise his children. Without that money, he can't survive. How many of you want to give up $120 a week just for the homeless and the poor and people get kicked out of their houses without clothes and money? Anybody want to volunteer? If you had it, you would. Without permission. Don't forget she didn't ask. She just took it. Did the judge do what was right? Was he ethical in his judgment? What are judges for? To enforce the law, right? No lying, stealing, cheating, raping, robbing, red light, green light. Someone T-bones you, you're going to want the judge to be there and enforce the law. Was the judge right in enforcing the law? Was his decision ethical? Young girl, 17 years of age, stole from an outside grocery store. Was he right in doing that? Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, it sucks, but at the end of the day, I mean, she still stole. I mean,
She stole, didn't she? Isn't that why we have laws that say no stealing? How many of you want your stuff just, someone reaches into your stuff and takes it because they need it?
the law isn't just like black and white. Yeah, I mean, she's not the same person that goes in there and, just steals just for fun, but it's just so it is. So at the end of the day, the law is the law, but we feel bad.
So in 2 weeks we'll do capital punishment, and I can show you statistically I have 100 men commit capital 1 crime the same way, and I have 100 women commit capital crime the same way as the 100 men. 97 men will get the death penalty and only 3 women will. What, do we have problem enforcing the law when it comes to killing women who kill people? Statistically we do. Yet ethics requires that we follow the law. No lying, stealing, cheating, raping, robbing, no killing. Look, if we all followed the law, we wouldn't need the law people. We have the law because people don't follow the law. That's the only reason we have the law. And the law needs to be enforced, or the security of the box, the freedom that we have within the box, is not reinforced, and therefore we have no protection. We have the purge. Louder for me, dear.
Like you said, the law gives us the ability to have religious freedom, but I think sometimes the injustice within the law also takes away a lot of the freedom that we're supposed to have. Kind of like how you said, and then we'll get more punishment than the women, and that's the case with a lot of other gender, race, everything. So